Welcome to It's No Accident, a podcast about the challenges of personal injury and wrongful death law in Florida, one of the nation's most complex legal environments.
You'll hear compelling stories about real cases from our law firm in Tallahassee that will help you better understand your rights and protect yourself from the negligence of others.
I'm Mark Nonni.
And I'm Jaeson Homola.
And this is
It's No Accident.
One of the things that we've done with this podcast is we've talked about some of the cases that we've handled. And one of the more relevant cases to what's going on in the legislature right now is a big case that you handled a couple years ago. I think the recovery was at the beginning of last year, right. But it was a bad faith case, and it actually was a standard car wreck case with really big damages. Unfortunately, our client was involved in a car wreck down in Orlando, and she ended up becoming quadriplegic as a result. And that case, because of what the insurance company did in that case, and we're talking about one of the bigger insurance companies in the country. I mean, everybody listening to this would know which insurance company it is if we said the name. But they did some things that rendered this case what's called a bad faith case.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit about, how that case came about and how that standard car wreck case turned into a bad faith case, which then in turn turned into $11 million recovery?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, definitely a tough case, but also probably one of the most fulfilling cases I've handled, just in terms of, our clients were just the nicest, sweetest people, and, felt so bad for this lady who, like you said, was in, leaving a concert in Orlando, passenger in a vehicle, and the driver, basically pulled out when he shouldn't have pulled out, and they got T-boned, and she was immediately, had a neck injury and immediately rendered quadriplegic, couldn't move at all, just completely immobilized. And it was a situation where, which was kind of unique about this case, where she was a passenger in the vehicle, and the driver, like I said, was the one who, messed up and was negligent and caused the wreck. And they'd been friends since high school. I mean, they'd been friends for years and years and years. And they knew, it was obvious immediately that she was a quadriplegic. It was obvious how bad these injuries were. And so the driver knew. I mean, they were best friends. He had told his insurance company, so the insurance company knew how bad it was.
So this would have been the insurance company for the driver of the vehicle that our client was in.
That's right. Okay. Exactly. For the driver's auto insurance company, they immediately knew how bad the injuries were. I think her initial stay in the hospital down there in Orlando alone was like $1 million, right off the bat, before they transferred her off to some specialty places. But, and the guy had $250,000 worth of insurance. And like I said, I mean, the initial hospital bills were way exceeded that,
Right.
It's like 4 times that.
Right. So, let's look at it from his point of view. He's sitting here. He knows that these lifelong friends of his were in his vehicle. He messed up. He caused an accident, a car wreck, and she's badly injured, $1 million in medical bills, and he's talking to his insurance company. They're telling him, well, you only have $250,000 in coverage. Right. So what does he do at that point?
Right. And so he's telling them, that basically, my friend's hurt. Y'all need to, pay my friend. And they need help with the medical bills and stuff like that. And, the insurance company is basically telling him, oh, don't worry, we'll take care of it. We'll take care of it. And instead of basically jumping right on it and just paying the money to these people which, I mean, at that point, it was just so obvious that these damages were going to be way more than his insurance policy. And so, the point of the insurance policy is to protect him and to protect his individual assets, right? And as soon as the insurance company pays that money, the people sign a release, and then his assets are protected.
Right.
That's the whole point. And instead of doing what they should have done and immediately offering them the money, I mean, they should have done it within, a couple weeks, certainly within like 30 days, and instead of doing that, they just dragged their feet and, waited like 6 months before they finally offered them the money. And at that point, I mean, her medical bills were even higher. It was just crazy high. And so basically what the insurance company did was hang their guy out to dry. They could have offered the money up early, gotten him a release, and protected his assets, which is what he's been paying them to do every month. And instead they just dragged their feet and they didn't. And that's essentially what bad faith is.
Yeah. So think about it this way. What's the worst case scenario for the driver of the vehicle that's at fault for causing the wreck? The worst case scenario is that, his friends are like, look, we need money to pay these medical bills. We don't have the ability to pay these medical bills. we wish your insurance company would have paid that $250,000 when the bills were lower, but now we've got $3 or $4 million in medical bills.
Right.
We're sorry. We need, we're going to have to go get a judgment against you, and they could go get a judgment against him.
I mean, she's looking at lifelong care.
Right. And, if they, and there's some behind the scenes things that happen too with regards to the medical liens. And if the insurance company pays that money quicker, the health insurance companies don't have the ability to put a lien on the case.
Right.
So if you get that money quicker and you're able to show the health insurance company that you've settled the claim already, they cannot then attach those medical bills to your case, and they can't come try to recoup that money. So the quicker the insurance company pays out, the more money that's actually going to go into the pocket of the individual that has the medical bills. So that's why it's so important for the insurance company to pay quickly.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you also brought up a point that the insurance company should have paid the money. Not only should they have paid the money, they actually had a duty to pay the money. What duty does the insurance company have in that situation to their insured?
Right, and the duty is to protect their insured from, like I was saying, from a judgment. Like you said, is to protect the insured from a judgment, protect their client, their customer, basically from having to come out of pocket and lose their assets, or lose pay their personal assets to cover everything that happened. And so they should have offered the money. If they would have offered the money early on, the clients, I mean, they said that they would have certainly accepted it. They didn't want to end up in some big lawsuit with their friend from high school.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like you said, if they would have offered it early on, more of that money could have gone in their pocket. And so, and instead of getting sucked up by the medical bills. And like I said, though, they drag their feet and unfortunately, what we see a lot of the times is just, not doing what they should have done and dragging their feet and trying to stall and delay it out,
Right. And the interesting thing about that case is, what was it like? It was like 3 or 4 months had gone by, and
they offered it,
and the insurance company still was saying, "Oh, we're investigating. Yes. We're investigating. Yes. We, and I think they said, we don't know how bad her injuries are. They kept saying, we're investigating. We don't know what caused the wreck. It was a clear-cut wreck. I mean, it was right. There was no doubt, right?
Right, exactly. There's no doubt. I mean, there's a clear-cut wreck, and the client's husband, who was in the vehicle with her, they were in there together. He got hurt, but not nearly as bad. He's calling the insurance company, week after week, month after month, to follow up and see what's going on, because his buddy is telling him, oh, they're going to pay you the money. Don't worry. And every time, like you said, the adjuster's basically like, oh, we're still investigating. How's your wife doing? And she's, after a few months of that, he's like getting pissed off and like, she's still paralyzed. Like, what do you mean, how's she doing?
Yeah, she didn't miraculously become not a quadriplegic overnight, right?
And so, the one thing also that in the bad faith situations, a lot of the times, the thing that was unique about this case is a lot of the times the insurance companies, whether it's true or not, I mean, they can kind of not get away with it, but kind of hide behind the fact that they don't know how bad the injuries are, right?
Right.
And they can, the longer it takes them to realize, until they realize really how bad the injuries are, the clock doesn't necessarily start running in terms of they should go ahead and pay the money. And so what was unique about this situation is the fact that the insurance company's client, the person who's at fault, was so close friends of my client to where they knew everything right off the bat. It wasn't like it took the insurance company 2 months to figure out how bad our injuries were. I mean, they knew within 24 hours.
Right.
And so it just made it even worse, more egregious that they would have just kind of dragged their feet and did what they did.
Right. And, it was never the intent of our clients to even get attorneys involved in the case. And, the crazy thing about that case is they call our office, they talk to you, they were referred to you by a family friend. Mm-hmm. They call the office, they talk to you. We immediately send a letter of representation to the insurance company. Mm-hmm. And literally the next day, there was an adjuster from that insurance company at our office with a check.
Right.
Saying, here, we're tendering the money. We're paying the money. Right. We've realized we need to pay the money. Right. So I don't think it's any coincidence. It's no accident that they end up at our office the next day after an attorney gets involved, right, trying to pay the money after 3 or 4 months of giving this poor guy to run around. Yeah, 6 months.
Absolutely.
So after so they've agreed to pay the money. I mean, how does that how'd the case go from there? I mean, because at that point you would, in a standard car wreck case, the case would be over. You know, they paid the money, but at that point, what did we do?
Yeah, no, like, and kind of like you said earlier, at that point it had been 6 months, and that $250,000 wasn't going to really put any of that money in their pocket, you know. And so we basically said thanks but no thanks, and didn't accept the check that they dropped off that day, and proceed with a lawsuit. You know, which was a difficult decision. They didn't want to, again, have to sue their their friend for life, but you know, we proceeded with a lawsuit. He ended up going out and getting his own separate attorney. So now he has, once we filed the lawsuit, the insurance company hires him an attorney, and then he ends up going out and getting his own separate attorney to basically try to protect his assets.
Right.
You know, because the insurance company's attorney, they're not so much worried about protecting his assets, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of a weird relationship there, where you have an attorney that's hired for you, but the attorney's also working for the insurance company, right?
Right. So whose interests are they actually protecting? The insurance company or their insured? It's always a weird conflict of interest there, but you know, they're allowed to do it. So in cases like this, usually what happens is the individual will go out and actually hire their own attorney to protect them, so that they know that they're getting the protection that they want. It's an attorney that they can choose on their own.
Exactly.
Not someone that's just given to them by the insurance company.
Exactly. You know, and so we went through the lawsuit process. It took a while. We did a bunch of depositions and stuff, and you know, and eventually ended up, you know, settling, like you mentioned earlier, for $11 million, which was, you know, a great result. You know, gives her definitely the money she needs to take care of her for the rest of her life. And, you know, I'd say there's even more so a good result, because from the client's perspective, we didn't have to go to trial. You know,
Right.
They didn't want to go to trial. You know, most of the time clients would rather not go to trial. And you know, in without getting too deep into it, in a bad faith situation, like, you know, a lot of times it can end up being two trials.
Right.
You know, the first trial against the person who caused the wreck to determine, you know, how much the jury is going to award for that, and then a second trial over whether or not the insurance company acted in bad faith.
Yeah.
And we were able to avoid both of those, and get the whole case settled for, you know, like I said, well above the policy limit of $250,000, which meant all that extra money, you know, on top of that, was all coming from the insurance company, not from the driver.
Right.
It was all coming from the insurance company, because they were basically acknowledged that they had broken the law and acted in bad faith.
Right.
And of course they wouldn't admit it, you know, on paper or anything, but the fact that they paid so much more than the $250,000 indicates that,
Yeah,
without
absolutely.
having to go to any trial, indicates they knew they kind of stepped in it, you know.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, they have a duty when, as soon as they know that the case, based on the information that they're getting, as soon as they know that the case is going to be a case that is potentially reasonably valued at more than what their insured's policy limit is, they have a duty to tender that money.
Right.
So, you know, the argument on our end was, you had 6 months to, and they have a duty to investigate as well. You know, they don't just get to sit around and wait for the documents to be handed to them. They actually have a duty to investigate. As soon as the claim comes in, they have a duty to go out and investigate and determine on their own as to whether or not the case warrants paying their policy limits. And in this case, I don't think there was any question. I think the insurance company knew there wasn't really any question that if we went to a jury trial and, you know, these facts got put to a 6-person jury, they were going to determine that, you know, there was bad faith involved here.
Yeah.
And that they should have paid the money probably within the first couple of weeks.
Right. Yeah. That's what I thought. I mean, at least certainly within 30 days, you know.
Right.
And so, but like you said at the beginning, so that was a few years ago. That's how the bad faith laws worked before. Earlier this year in March, there was a lot of laws that got changed, and one of them was bad faith.
Right.
And so everything we just described today probably would not happen that way, right? And because, you know, without getting super into the weeds about what the new law is, essentially the law's been changed now to give the insurance companies more cover, you could say, you know, make it harder to hold their feet to the fire and successfully sue them for bad faith, and basically give them more outs, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so one of the things that the legislature did, obviously the insurance companies were coming to them and they're like, look, you know, we don't want to be on the hook for more than what our policy limits are, regardless of the fact that, you know, we may have violated our duties to our insured. We want you to help us out please pass some laws that are going to protect us or give us some safe harbor. So one of the things that the legislature did is they put in place a safe harbor provision for these insurance companies, and it basically says that they have a 90-day safe harbor. So as soon at the point where they have the information that they need to tender the policy limit, which is also, that's a moving target. That's a question of fact in and of itself. But as soon as they reasonably have the information that they need to tender the money, that starts a ticking clock for them that they have 90 days to. So it's either they have the information or the injured party or their attorney has demanded the policy limit. So what you're going to see now is you're gonna see not so much investigation going on by the insurance companies, and they're going to say, well, we didn't know that the injuries were this bad until we got the demand from the attorney. So in the case that we had, the argument would have been, well, we didn't know that the injuries were that bad, and as soon as the attorney said that they were willing to settle for the $250,000, we were on their doorstep with the $250,000. When in reality, they had 6 months, and they could have tendered the money. So in today's climate and the way that the law is now, we would have had a much more difficult time, I think, with this bad faith case. Right. In fact, I don't even know if it would have moved forward.
Right.
And it's unfortunate because, the insurance company, they want to hold on to their money as long as possible. I mean, I don't think it's any secret. These are billion-dollar companies. They've got lots of people running lots of numbers. They know exactly how long they need to hold on to their money in order to turn a profit. Sure. So the longer they can hold on to that money, the longer they can make money on that money.
Sure. They're investing it all, right?
Right, they're investing it all. So if they can hold on to, $250,000 for 6 months as opposed to 2 weeks, they might be able to recoup that money in that period of time.
And then you do that in not just this case, but you do it in 20 or 30 cases. I mean, it adds up.
Right. So, and it's interesting because you listen. There was some people that when the legislature was in committee and there was testimony on these bills. You have these insurance adjusters come in and say, we want to pay these claimants. We want to pay them. We're dying to pay them. But it's a lot of lip service because when you're actually in the trenches and you're doing this type of work, you see that no, they don't. Or you want to pay them, but you want to pay them $2,000 on a $50,000 claim.
Right.
So, but that was a case that I know you're really proud of. I mean, I'm proud of. I think we did an amazing job. We had great clients, and the best thing about that case is she's gonna have enough money to cover her medical expenses that she's going to need moving forward because she's got a long road ahead of her. And she's going to have what she needs.
Absolutely. Like I said, I mean, it's always, in all of our cases, it feels good to help people, but it was especially, rewarding in that situation where, she was going to need so much care down the road and in the future. And now she can afford to get the best care and not just, kind of the bare minimum, so to speak.
Right.
No matter your injury, Nonni Homola is here to help you recover. Visit noho.law today.